What's up everyone, Alex here. Not many of you know this, but the very first review I've ever made on this channel was on Monster Hunter World. So imagine my surprise that after several years, I'm once again talking about Monster Hunter on the channel. Only this time, it's yet another branch of the series that I'm unfamiliar with. And much like how Monster Hunter World won me over with its deep and rich gameplay, Monster Hunter Stories 2 showed me a side of the series that not only carries over much of what I loved about the aforementioned game, but makes it so much more accessible that it made me love it even more. This review was made possible by viewers like you, so please leave a like, comment, then subscribe to the channel. Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, is a turn-based RPG developed by Capcom and Marvelous and published by Capcom, who provided this Switch game code. Rathalos from all corners of the world have mysteriously migrated away from civilization, and it's up to you, the descendant of the famed Rider Red, to uncover the reason why this is all happening. But the road to discovery won't be easy, as you must master the ways of the Rider, a task that will take you to far-off destinations and learn about exotic monsters that you'll need to tame in order to better understand what's going on in this vast ecosystem. Prior to its release, I had this misconception that Stories retained much of the gameplay found in a main series, while delivering a lighter-hearted affair. So imagine my surprise when so many of you told me that I was in fact mistaken, and that the game is actually a turn-based RPG. And I couldn't be happier to be wrong. What's unique about Stories 2's battles is that you're able to see who your enemies are targeting, which allows you to implement strategies based on what's happening in this round of combat. In addition, all of the game's attacks and skills fall into one of 3 different attack types, utilizing a rock-paper-scissors system that determines its strengths and weaknesses. Power beats technical, technical beats speed, and speed beats power. This starts to matter once you're targeted by an enemy, and if you choose to tackle your attacker head-on, your chosen attack type will determine whether you win or lose. And if you win, you'll deal significantly more damage than your opponent. If a Monstie companion attacks the same enemy and also uses the same attack type, you unleash a double attack that deals a ton more damage and cancels their attack entirely. Both of these build up the kinship gauge, which allows you to commandeer your Monstie in a variety of different ways. Think of it as MP that builds up during battle. When your kinship gauge is filled up completely, you're able to ride your Monstie, which not only lets you unleash a unique and highly damaging super attack, but also replenishes you and your Monstie's health. In later battles, you'll start to encounter monsters with multiple targetable body parts. Choosing to target one specific part is key to preventing that monster's special attack from being unleashed, but that's not enough. Each body part may receive more damage if attacked with a specific weapon, which belongs to one of 3 different types: slash, piercing, and blunt. Each of the different weapons in the game have different ways to charge up, and have a variety of skills which, in turn, can alter the way you approach each turn in combat. Weapon skills also spend a portion of your kinship gauge, so you'll have to manage that resource carefully. My desire to meticulously illustrate some of the intricacies of Stories 2's battle system comes from wanting to express to you how different this game's combat is when compared to other turn-based RPGs you might have played prior. Before playing this game, I was at a point where I was craving for combat that didn't feel too similar to what I'd already played before, and Monster Hunter Stories 2 certainly didn't disappoint. This might sound silly, but just the simple fact that I'm able to target a monster-specific body part really made me feel like I was playing a mainline Monster Hunter game, despite it being presented as a turn-based RPG. I've also reflected on how much of my prior knowledge helped me understand the concepts in the game, and I do wonder if newcomers joining the series with Stories 2 will have the same feeling when transitioning into the mainline series due to these overlapping concepts. Outside of combat, you'll find a lot of additional gameplay depth by way of its crafting and Monstie progression. Mainline Monster Hunter games are known to be grindy, particularly because you often need to farm a ton of materials in order to make suitable gear that'll help you survive its more grueling fights. Monster Hunter Stories 2 features a similar looking crafting system, although you're not going to need to spend hours farming all the right materials. Instead, each gear recipe is divided into different sections and features different numerical totals you'll have to add up to. You'll get a choice of different materials to use for each section, and selecting rarer materials counts for more points towards its total. By comparison, crafting consumables is a lot easier and can simply be done by selecting Combine and choosing the item you wish to make. Interestingly, the developers decided that in order to get certain crafting recipes and weapon skills, you'll have to fulfill certain side quests in order to unlock them. While some players might mind this approach, I find this to be yet another way that Stories 2 is trying to funnel players into a routine that's not so dissimilar to that of the mainline games. Pick up a ton of quests from the quest board, go out and do said quests, and turn them all in at the same time. It's convenient for me, and being able to just take a whole bunch of them at once and doing them all incentivizes my exploration of the world at large. Unique to the Stories series is the Monsty system, which will have you infiltrating monster dens for a chance to come away with rare monsties that'll join your party. Finding these monsties isn't straightforward though, as it'll not only require you to locate the den's hidden nest, but also loot it multiple times until you get the egg that you want. Looting these nests will randomly yield eggs of varying marks, colors, and rarities, and you can keep doing so until the eggs disappear, as the game often says. Once you wind up with an egg, you'll need to carry it away from the nest for a short distance, though you'll never be asked to carry it all the way to the den's entrance. But there might be times when you've plundered the nest too much that it might awaken a slumbering monster nearby. All of a monsty's active and passive skills can be found on its bingo board, which also yields passive damage buffs whenever a row, column, or diagonal set of matching panels form a line. Inheritance is achieved by way of a rite of channeling, which lets you take a monsty's skill and place it in an empty panel on another monsty's bingo board, at the cost of releasing the monsty who you took the skill from. And much like how each monsty has different super abilities when riding them during battle, you can also use them as mounts while exploring the land, with some even having different methods of traversal that'll let you get to areas beyond your reach. Naturally, there's a ton of other systems at play here that I simply don't have time to go over, but this is all to restate that the experience in Monster Hunter Stories 2 will be quite different than any other JRPG you might play this year or the next. As a series, Monster Hunter has built a multitude of systems that interconnect and mesh together that translating these into a turn-based format probably made for an easier transition. I think of other game series that have tried to go into different genres only to lose parts of what made their franchises so appealing. But that is certainly not the case for Stories 2, which really lets newcomers play with these overarching concepts, albeit in a format that is more approachable and easier to digest. And I simply love that I get to use what I already know of the series in a way that makes learning this game a lot more intuitive and fun. One of my favorite things about Monster Hunter is its ability to present its world and environments in a grand scale, and the environments of Monster Hunter Stories 2 capture the same vastness and size that the main series titles offer. As soon as you set out and explore Hakolo Island, you'll be greeted by the glistening ocean and massive rock formations that all feel reachable and explorable. And while the game doesn't run quite smoothly on the Switch as it does on PC, that doesn't take away from the feeling of awe and excitement that you'll experience when looking out from some of the game's beautiful vistas. I can't tell you how many countless times I've run around each new area and explored every nook and cranny, venturing further into numerous monster dens that pepper the island, with the hopes of finding a rare Monsty egg that'll bring forth a powerful new ally. I love it when a game's world just has tons of areas to scout and discover, and with so many out-of-reach places accessible to monsties with special traversal abilities, it adds an additional consideration whenever you're assembling your party. What will propel you to further explore the game's lush and beautiful landscapes is a story that makes you feel more involved in the daily happenings of the world around you. While storytelling isn't exactly Monster Hunter's forte, Stories 2 takes the narrative style found in the latest mainline games and alters it slightly to make it feel more personal. Yes, this is still very much about hunting monsters that lumber about, but it makes sense given the way the narrative frames your involvement in it. As a fledgling writer, your character's journey mirrors that of your own experience, and this connection is even made stronger for folks whose first Monster Hunter game happens to be this one. For me, the biggest addition to Stories 2 has to be the introduction of another writer and Monstie to your party. In the original game, you were only battling alongside your Monstie, which felt a bit lonely. Adding another writer and Monstie not only gives you more options during combat, double attacking with the other writer's Monstie as an example, but the mere presence of a companion ties the current goings-on in the story neatly with some of the monster encounters in the game, adding more flavor to the events unfolding. I should point out that you're unable to tell your companion and their Monstie what to do during battle. And while your Monstie behaves on their own as well, you can control what skills they use by spending some of your kinship gauge. I did find that the way your companion's AI behaves matches their personality in the story, though I'm certain that many players would much rather be able to control these party members directly. That said, I didn't find them too cumbersome to deal with. The characters themselves are endearing in their own ways, and the game does an interesting job of telling their stories and conveying them to you. This level of character development isn't quite as deep as other JRPGs out there, but what Stories 2 did surprised me a bit. Speaking of, I was pleasantly surprised by how good the soundtrack is in Stories 2. I usually don't gravitate towards some of the more predominant musical styles and themes featured in the game, but Stories 2 manages to make me care about its songs, delivering some memorable verses that really move you even within the same arrangement. And, of course, there's the iconic song that plays every time you fell a monster or two.
Well fought, my friend.
Once upon a time, Capcom made an incredible turn-based RPG series that has since been lost to time. But Monster Hunter Stories 2 proves that it still has the talent and know-how to be able to deliver a modern experience in the genre in today's day and age. Turning Monster Hunter into a turn-based game allows fans such as myself to engage with the series in a way that feels more accessible, especially when compared to the rigorous demands of playing any of the main games. It's a different kind of flavor, and one that's got enough overlap for fans of either the games or the genre to come together and enjoy the world that they built. And that's not even talking about the fact that this JRPG lets you play co-op or PvP with other players. I've already said it a few times in my review, but I'll say it again. You won't ever experience a game like Monster Hunter Stories 2 in a good long while, whether you're a longtime Monster Hunter fan or just someone looking for something that feels new and fresh to play. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you're playing through Monster Hunter Stories 2, we have a place for you to join other writers and talk about its story in depth without spoiling it for others. And that's on our Discord at bit.ly/ourbacklogbattle. And if you really like this video, join our Patreon at patreon.com/backlogbattle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.